it's always interesting to me that we have a desire for equality, but don't consider our own people equal.
But it does seem that there could be an agenda at times pushed onto the heterosexual community.
What's that agenda?
It feels more so of accept, even if you may not be as open to it. Mm-hmm. And I think you get a level of pushback.
Right.
So
this is the question I always pose, right? Because I was having this conversation with someone who was Black and that is also very queer. And we looked at this very different. They'd be like, how do you identify? And I'm like, as a Black person, because it doesn't matter who I'm dating or anything like that. If somebody opted into shooting me in the street, it wouldn't be because I like ladies. It would be because I'm Black, first circle. And so I'm like, so I see myself as Black before anything, where I can understand that other people may not. But it always fascinates me when I hear this conversation because you sound like a white person.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because with the same people, Black, we will be like, well, we just want to be accepted. We just want you to see value in us. And so it's always interesting to me in any gamut of how people deem anyone who's not a white man that we have these conversations, because then if there is the gay agenda, then there's the Black agenda. You know what I'm saying? Like we all, and yes, we all have an agenda. We all desire to show up in the world. Like I have a cooking agenda. You know what I'm saying? You have a comedy agenda. We ought to say that no one has an agenda is also very wild to me. And I think that fascinates me as a people who have been constantly, so there's two things that work here. I'm going to say this, but I'm also going to totally counter what I'm saying. It's always interesting to me that we have a desire for equality, but don't consider our own people equal. But we also have to understand that with married to a woman raising 2 children, am not running the same race as the white man who's standing on the soapbox that's married to his husband raising their obviously not white children. You know what I'm saying? Like those two things are
so
not.
So there's racism in
it's the same ecosystem. And I think that people will be like, oh yeah, well it's not the same. I don't like, you know what I'm saying? Like white women will sit here and complain about abortion rights and still vote for Trump because their desire is not to align with people who are not white. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing. And I think that we get so caught up in other things it's interesting that we get caught up in the inability to not understand other people while having the deep desire to have a race of people understand us.
It's definitely a sticky one. And I'm trying to, because I like kind of going into places that people may be afraid to touch. And I had debates before, kind of like within my own personal space of like trying to articulate what heterosexuals feel. It sounds even weird saying like, oh, the heterosexuals are on attack. Not under attack.
But that's the same way white people be like, our whiteness is under, you know what I'm saying? Because it's the thing of, it's very interesting.
But it's somewhat tied into Blackness as well. Because, you know, growing up in the church, it's...
Yeah, I know.
Homosexuality.
I have a friend now that's like, I love you, but it's big chance you going to hell. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, thanks.
Does that hurt you when you hear stuff like that?
I think that maybe in the beginning it stung because it has nothing to do with how the Lord sees me, but how you see me. And it's really interesting, the shift change, because if you didn't know, I was fine, because nothing changed with me, but except your access to information. And so it's like now, like what I still raise the same kids. We still do the same things. We still serve in church together. We still do. The only thing is you have a deeper understanding of who I am personally. And that's the thing that changed for you. And so I think that I pick up my own cross and walk.
Yeah.
And so how that's that's for me to work out. And I also find just how people see that really interesting. But I also can understand how you see it, and that's fine too.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You brought up the white perspective, because it does kind of sound like some white talking points. Hey, we're here to preserve certain things. I think for us, because it does feel like we're being attacked and we don't know who to trust. And a lot of times the things that are being marketed to us aren't really coming from directly us. Like, it might represent you. They might put you on the poster, but who's behind it? So you just don't know who to trust. And I think there's just conversations happening of, is this about me accepting? Because I accept you. But when you put it in my face constantly, okay, what's going on here? I think that's where people...
Yeah, and I think that's wild, because we haven't known each other very long, but we've talked pretty consistently. And I've at least I don't think I may have pushed it, having children and going to school agenda on you, but I don't think that...
Well, it doesn't come from you.
Right.
It comes from like corporations.
Yeah, which
TV.
Is like, okay, yeah, Black History Month. You know what I'm saying?
No,
we've overloaded people with like really weird information, because corporations and white people trade in the thing that they deem equitable, right? Like Latin American Month, Black History Month, Indigenous people. We like Christopher Columbus. No, we don't. We want the gay people. Just kidding. We want abortion rights.
Whatever's the thing
keep
right
your baby.
now.
So it's like that, but I see how people get caught up in the spinning of it all. And I think that we, as people, in the quest for access to information and figuring out your rights and learning who you are, we've lost humanity a little bit along the way, because I actually really don't care who you marry and who you go home to.
Right.
As long as you're not next door to me chopping up bodies, we fine. And that's what you should really be caring about. You know, do I eat people in my spare time? No. So I think that we also get caught up in things that really logistically have nothing to do with how you show up in the world, and then also how you interact with me. You know what I'm saying? But I think it comes from when white people are in a space and they don't feel validated, their quest for validation. And I think that it's really fascinating, because I think that we, as other people, adopt those tropes. We start to take on and be like, I'm